Mayor Andre Dickens here at 14th Street and Crescent. Today of a individual having a mental crisis, shooting inside of his apartment, various weapons, and thankfully the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department has brought him into custody. He is alive and able to communicate to us thank you. As near the end of this episode, he did wave his hands to give up, and as he was on his balcony to say, please come get him. And so the men and women of Atlanta Police Department, the SWAT team, came and got him, and now he's off to get medical attention. This is where we are right now. I will turn it over to Atlanta Police Department Chief Schierbaum to give more details about the incident as it played out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Darren Schierbaum, Chief of the Atlanta Police Department, here giving an update to our city and the residents of Midtown of what transpired here today and how we brought this to a peaceful resolution. A little bit after 10 o'clock this morning, we were dispatched to what was initially classified as a mental health emergency at the Four Seasons, and this was occurring in the residential area, not in the hotel portion of the building. The officers arrived. We did learn that the individual may have had a handgun at the time that he was involved in an altercation with an employee of the Four Seasons. Officers attempted to get the individual to come to the door to speak with him. He refused to do so, and then we began negotiating to the individual, asking him to come out peacefully. We did start to develop information that he may have access to other weapons, and so our tactical field operators as well as the SWAT team was deployed to this area. We did evacuate the floor that this was occurring on, which is the 33rd floor, and then the floor above and the floor below that. And to the residents that have been displaced, we're going to move quickly to let you gain access back to your apartments as quickly as can, but this is an active investigation. While the efforts were underway to negotiate a peaceful surrender of this individual so we could resolve the situation, get medical assistance for him, he began firing a weapon. We believe at this time at least 3 different weapons were fired during the course of this event. We believe handguns, potentially a shotgun, and a rifle may have been used. The vast majority of those rounds were fired through walls of the apartment. They were fired through the door of the apartment, and at least 1 round was fired from the balcony. During this course of interaction, we have had 1 Atlanta police officer injured. He is en route to Grady Hospital for treatment. We do not believe those injuries are life-threatening. Also during this time, at least 2 of our officers did fire during those exchanges. And one of those, at times the weapon was fired, was to end a threat, so no weapons could be fired from the balcony. And that is why we issued the shelter in place. This is why I ask individuals not to be in rooms facing this location. And we appreciate you, members of the media, for passing that along. We appreciate the residents of Midtown for cooperating in that. We did see at least 1 weapon thrown off of the balcony. And we did, as our mayor indicated, see him raising his hands as if he was surrendering. Medical assistance was prepped, and then our SWAT team did breach the door, did enter the apartment, and was able to take the individual into custody. At this time, we have under arrest a J. Stevens Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R, and Stevens is S-T-E-V-E-N-S. And Mr. Berger was born March 11th, 1954. And right now, this is being investigated as an aggravated assault incident, and we also have our Homeland Security team investigating as well. So this time, he was injured during this interaction. He's being taken to Grady Hospital in stable condition to be treated, and we have 1 member of the Atlanta Police Department that has been injured, is being treated as well. I do want to commend the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department. As the mayor and I were in the command post watching body-worn camera and other feeds, and we saw bravery. We saw an effort to make sure we preserved life, both of Midtown residents and the individual that we need to get help for. And the officers worked very methodically to prevent any further threats and to take this individual into custody. So to the members of our SWAT team, our negotiators, and the Zone 5 officers and the TFOs that responded, I want to thank you for your efforts again to live up to the highest standards of this agency, which is to preserve life within the Midtown area. And open for any questions. I think I covered everything.
One other thing, Chief, as you and I saw from the command center, he was wearing a mask, and these officers on the other side of the door did not know if he had chemical irritants or some sort of any kind of weaponry in there that he needed this mask, so we didn't know whether he was going to be, what was going to be on the other side of that door. So It was a lot of unknowns, but the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department went through great care to make sure that this individual was brought home safely. If necessary, they would have taken other actions, and so we're glad that the outcome came about that. No one else was hurt or injured in this. We do have one officer that we will find out more about, but it doesn't seem life-threatening. So kudos again to the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department, and to the residents of the Four Seasons. As mentioned, we will try to get you back into your units as fast as possible. Of course, it's still a active crime scene on the 33rd floor, and the 32nd and 34th floors are sealed off for precautions. And then 13th Street, there's evidence that he's thrown over the balcony, so we still have that closed off as well, because we have to make sure that more work is done on that side. So from there, we'll take any questions.
You said there were a lot of unknowns. How tense was the situation? You said there were a lot of unknowns. How tense was that situation?
Well, I'm not a police officer, but I was inside of the command center with the command staff, watching this play out from body-worn cameras, watching it from our drone footage, and seeing the intensity of this. Definitely was one of those moments where you can see that it was a critical incident that officers had to use all of their training and depend on each other. Chief?
Very tense. The officers were trying to keep the threat isolated, making sure that no harm could come to anyone, and try to preserve the life of an individual that clearly needed help. But unfortunately, he was in a moment of crisis, armed with multiple firearms.
And knives. And
knives, that is correct.
Yeah.
Can you give us an approximate idea? I know you're still investigating, but how many shots were fired?
There were multiple shots. We could hear some of them over the radio by the body-worn cameras. I don't want to give you any yet, but anywhere from 15 or above. And Chief Harper, you may be able to give an exact number, but above 15 at least.
Above 15 for sure.
Yeah, that was fired.
All right, we're gonna move to Ryan.
Just because you guys had to put out the alerts, how important was it for people to pay attention to those alerts, considering that you started firing out his own window?
It was very important. When we issue any alert through our social media and ask you to resend it to your viewers, your listeners, your readers, it's because we need everyone's cooperation. This is a beautiful neighborhood, but it was an elevated position that if it went the wrong way, could have caused others that weren't at the Four Seasons to be in danger. But we had a plan in place for that, and we deployed multiple resources to make sure that we stopped the threat and it couldn't extend beyond that 33rd floor.
Cody?
And Chief, just to put people through how we got here, because again, this thing escalated through the afternoon. Can you just walk people, again, what happened inside the Four Seasons that led to this altercation, that led to you guys getting here? Just to clarify everything for people to how this all will transpire.
It was a mixture of a report of a dispute between the residents and a member of the staff here at the Four Seasons that may have been motivated by a mental health emergency, but the individual could have been armed. And so that's what brought us here initially. And when we attempted to speak to the individual to learn the story, to make sure that we knew what was going on so we knew the right course of action, he refused to come to the door. And as we gathered more information, that's why we called in additional resources such as SWAT. And as a precaution, and sure, as we could potentially be the case, it evolved quickly. And quickly to place our officers in danger, and they did stay in that space to make sure that no one else was in danger, and we kept Midtown safe.
And the uniqueness of this too, because we have, almost 90 floors or 90 units on the resident side. Can you talk about how unique this was for you guys? I saw SWAT going up, snappers in this building, for how you guys train and be able to, activate this inside a residence with a hotel on the 33rd floor of a Midtown unit.
These occurrences are few and far between, but I want you to know your police department trains consistently for these occurrences. We hope we're never called to a first-story building or a 90-story building to end a threat, but we're ready. And we hope we never have to stand between the citizens of this city that may be armed with multiple weapons in a mental health emergency using them, but we're ready. Training is vital to us to be trusted and good at what we do. And thank you, Mayor, for believing in that and giving us the tools to keep all neighborhoods safe.
All right, Tyler? Over here, Chief. Mayor.
Oh, Townsend.
Hey, how you doing? It looks like from at least a picture of the suspect, Mr. Berger, that he may have had some injury to his face. Blood, was he shot in the face, or what kind of injuries did he sustain? It looks like he was on a stretcher.
That will be part of the investigation. We have asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to investigate. We did use force. 2 officers did discharge their weapons to make sure any threat was mitigated and stopped. And so we will know at the conclusion of the investigation how those injuries came to be.
Was he hit by one of them?
We don't know yet. We're in the earliest hours of that investigation.
Anyone else have questions? Tyler? Cody?
Just on, we saw the suspect be brought on an ambulance. At this point, he is in custody, taken to the hospital. And then, as far as charges, was there anything else that he was charged with? You said it was an aggravated assault. Can you talk about any charges that might be coming on this suspect? Obviously, he'll go in the hospital in jail.
Certainly. Deputy Chief Span's team is actively investigating. We do know we have what we believe is to be the initial aggravated assault. The discharging of the weapons toward our officers, we anticipate that will be additional charges as well. And just the reckless endangerment that was occurring during that time, we will bring charges that are appropriate to the court.
And last, was your officer shot? Can you talk about, without giving too much specifics, how your officer was injured?
We will know that shortly. My next stop is the hospital to check on the officer, to determine how he came to be injured. We have not ruled that out yet.
Okay.
All right.
I appreciate
Is he
it.
a member of the SWAT team?
Yes, sir.
All right, Josh.
Yes, you said that this person was having a mental situation. Do you know yet if he was even allowed to be in possession of these weapons?
We do not know yet.
Any other questions? If no other questions, please make sure you refer to our social media and our website, the Atlanta PD website, in the news section. If you have any further questions, that's where all updates will be posted. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.